What's going on, Max?
How are you?
I'm first of all, I'm thrilled that I was able to, you would think 5 years after COVID I'd be high tech, but I'm still very low tech. So congrats to me for like being able to see you and be here. Hi.
Oh, there was a little feedback there. I cut it out.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
You're all set?
Hi.
How are you doing, Amy? Welcome to the show. Mad
Thank
Max
you so
Radio,
much.
Live 365. You may know her from Homeland, 13 Reasons Why, Brainscan, Founders Day. She's been in a lot of work, especially in recent times. I know she's got some upcoming work I was reading about online. Welcome to the show, Amy. How's it going?
It's going really great. I'm just cozy at home. It's been freezing in New York. We had some snow. So I'm just happy to be here and cozy and talking to you.
Yeah, exactly. It's really cold because I'm based out of Connecticut, got my start out in Queens, so I'm well rounded in the
What?
tri-state area.
Wait, I thought you were Long Island.
No, I'm in
You
Connecticut.
Okay, but you're originally from Queens, but didn't you go to St. John's?
Yes, went to St. John's, yeah.
Okay, okay, because 'cause I'm from Long Island, so I was
That's
like,
right.
"Oh," I mean, it's still tri-state area. We'll allow it.
Exactly. Wasn't there a school I did do my research that you chose to there was potential there, I think you were gonna be going out to Connecticut?
I actually went to Fairfield University for
Okay,
undergrad.
yeah.
Yeah, like, straight up in Fairfield. So I grew up in Suffolk County, and I would take the, Bridgeport ferry, from Port Jeff to Bridgeport, and, I mean, I was stayed in the dorms, but when I would have to go home, I would just take the ferry home. It was really cute.
How did you like Connecticut?
Connecticut's such a beautiful state, really nice people. I mean, it felt a little homogenous for me. I was working as a young age as an actress in New York, and I went to school for other things because I wasn't sure I wanted to pursue this 100%. So I was fortunate that like when I kind of started getting bored at Fairfield, I was going to the city to work all the time. So I would just hop on the train. So I mean, there's a lot of beautiful things to say about Connecticut. It wasn't for me at that time in my life, but I have friends who live there now. It's fun to go visit.
Yeah, it's a good place to I would always say retire, not so look for
Yeah,
entertainment and work, it's a good place to retire. It's just a
right.
road from here to New York pretty
It's
much.
true. 1 hour you're there.
Exactly. Don't like the cold weather. I'm surprised in learning about you, you never wanted to make the move out to LA, especially with the weather.
Well, I let's not say never. I definitely explored it, especially like back in the day when I was coming up. It was something you did. You would go out to LA for pilot season. So, like in the late 90s, I went out to LA for 6 months. I lived in a really crappy apartment that was totally illegal. This lady had a house and it was her garage turned into an apartment, but the bathroom and the kitchen were one room. So like you would be like pee pee on the toilet and the fridge, you literally could touch the fridge. It was right next to you. And the only sink was like a bathroom sink, like a vanity sink. So it wasn't safe. It wasn't legal. But long story short, I loved LA. It's such beautiful weather. It's a great place to be working as an actor. It's not that great for me to be unemployed out there. I was fortunate. I booked a pilot that year. I had some things cooking, but ultimately I just felt like New York was my home. And I had to come back. It just wasn't doing it for me. So now I go to LA when work takes me there and I'm happy to do it.
And that's the way to do it, especially if you're a New York native and you truly love being in New York, and that's what you do. How
Yeah.
has the industry been affected, kind of on the whole spectrum of things now with the wildfires going on out there in LA?
Yeah, it's been kind of a really unfortunate. I mean, it's so tragic and terrible for so many people. But in terms of the industry, it's just been another kind of blow after, the streaming bubble really kind of blew up and then affected so many people's incomes because they just weren't coming through with, the streamers aren't paying as much as, network TV. So that's one thing. And then we had COVID and we had the strikes and now we've got the fires and it's really been a challenge for LA based folks, crew, the studios. It's been really challenging, so I don't know what's going to happen next. I really don't.
Yeah,
I
it's
really
pretty
don't.
much just one thing after the other, and it's just
Yeah,
nonstop.
so much work has already moved out of LA. Like there's so much work in Canada, New York, Atlanta, all over the place. So for me, not being LA based, I'm like, it sucks, but I'm not really feeling the effect right now.
No, and that's good to see that you're still going, you're still looking for work elsewhere, and that's not
Yeah.
just limited to LA, and really getting out there because you started early on with theater, and that kind of branched out there for you because you
Mhm.
auditioned for Annie back in the day.
I did. Wow, deep dive. I did. I did. That was, I was just a kid on Long Island who liked to sing. And my mom and one of her good friends brought me into the city for an open call for the movie Annie from like 19, I don't know, 80, 82. And I was just a little kid. We went to the Plaza Hotel. They had a huge open casting call, and I got a call back and another call back and another call back. I ended up screen testing. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of winging it, but I didn't get the job, obviously. But it kind of, I got bit by the bug, and I think for my family also, they were like, "Oh, maybe, she kinda has something here." So, here we are, a million years later.
Is there something that you take away from each audition, even if you don't get it? Because I'm someone more, I get angry. I hear other people, they get angry when they don't get the parts. I mean, that's natural. But is there a positive that you take away from each audition when you don't get a role and that
And
kind of adds fuel to your fire to get the next one?
yeah, I mean, in a way, I mean, listen, like, I gotta be totally straight. You don't get most auditions.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you're not getting the job, and especially where I'm at this point in my life, I'm very fortunate. I do get straight offers for certain kinds of projects. I do absolutely read for things, and I'm thrilled to do that as well. Um, when it doesn't go your way, it's a really tricky thing psychologically. You kind of have to just leave it on the table. You have to create your character, take the material, read it, prepare, go in, say, this is my take on this material. If you're going to hire me, this is kind of what I'm thinking. And hopefully you get to meet the director and have a conversation and do a vibe check. And if it doesn't go your way, then it wasn't for you. That's really not too inspiring, but you just got to
Yeah.
keep going and know that this is one interesting thing. Before I was cast in Homeland, I had gone to the same casting office for, probably a decade. Twice a year, they would bring me in and see me for things. I would never get the freaking job. I go for the Homeland audition, and I'm like, "Oh, Claire Danes' sister, that kind of feels right." A drama, it's kind of my wheelhouse. I was like, this is kind of lining up as something that actually could be right for me. I left. I kind of left it there. Wasn't sure how I did, and I ended up getting the job. And the moral of the story is, like, I had to go into that office for 10 years before I got Homeland, and they kept bringing me back because they liked me. It just wasn't my part. It wasn't my moment. It wasn't my time. So they bring in actors again and again, and you shouldn't let that, like, if there are any aspiring actors, don't let that dissuade you from keeping going. Like, let that be your encouragement. And if a casting office brings you back in, it's because they like you. They think you're gonna, like, make them look good, and they can present you to the director or the producers, and it's gonna reflect back on them. You might not be the piece of the puzzle for this project, but maybe you will for the next one.
I like that. Yeah, never give up, keep the drive going, and that's what
Yeah,
you've done all along here. I
I
mean,
really have.
it's you have a amazing story. Just learn about it. But Brain Scan was the big one here. This was the huge horror film. I heard you actually like horror films, which is rare. Most
Love
people that are in
horror.
horror films, they
Yeah.
don't like it for some reason. So, what was kind of your draw to the horror genre?
Well, I mean, I think, to be honest, when I was very young and was cast in Brainscan, I was like, "Holy cow, I'm getting cast in this huge movie." Like, I was just happy to be there. You know what I mean? I had just finished graduates because I wasn't sure I wanted to be an actress 100%. I was kind of like afraid, I think. So I went to graduate school for political science. I had just finished graduate school at NYU, but kept my foot in the door and kept my agents and was auditioning. I auditioned for that. Like, I graduated in May and I was in Montreal in July shooting that movie. So, like, the world is weird. I didn't say to my agents, "Oh, I want to do horror," but that's just what came up. I read for it, I booked it. I was like, "All right, let's go." And now, kind of more recently, I've kind of had a little renaissance in the horror world, working with the Bloomquist brothers, who are up in Connecticut. Actually, they're based out of Connecticut. They did Founders Day, which is insane, and I loved working with them on that. It's such a ridiculous movie, and it's so fun. And I just finished another movie that's kind of like a horror thriller, kind of. I don't even know what you categorize it as, but kind of horror, called Self Help, that we shot this past fall in where were we? West Virginia.
Wow.
Yeah, and I love it. It's just fun. It's fun.
Yeah, you're always looking for a horror movie to do. You big fan of the Babadook. So what's kind of the role
Yes.
Founders Day was the one that you did recently. So what's kind of the role that you want to play as a main character in a horror film?
Well, oh, that's interesting. Honestly, I don't even think that way. For me, I think about, I'm not like, oh, I need to be the lead for it to be meaningful. Like, I want to work with a really great team led by a great director with a great script, horror, drama, comedy, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, I'm looking for well-written material with a good team because ultimately we're making movies. We're not, you know, you want to David Lynch, who just died,
Yeah.
had been seeing these clips online of him talking about, like, I hear about people who run movie sets with out of fear and they're yelling at people, and he's like, why? Like, we all just have one life to live. We're all just trying to get through it and have fun and enjoy ourselves. That's kind of my attitude on movie sets, and I find myself. Oh, my dog's barking. I find myself magnetized towards filmmakers who kind of set that kind of tone on set. So really, yes, I love horror, but I feel like it's been more like luck has just dropped a lot of horror in my lap lately, and it's been a ton of fun. But I did a movie called Linoleum a couple years ago that was so beautiful with Jim Gaffigan. That was more kind of magical realism. My characters I think is hilarious. That's just me. I'm waiting for my sitcom because I do think I'm very funny. But yeah, so
And Marvel movie. You want to do a Marvel movie?
hell yeah, who doesn't? Come
Yeah,
on,
that's the
get that.
moneymaker.
I want that Marvel money is what I want.
Yeah. Well,
It's
close to
tricky.
it,
Yeah.
with if we connect it to your commercial, you were one step back in the day with those Dungaroo things that were came what were the underwear?
Underoos?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ah, nice. Yes, that was the first TV commercial I ever did, which was kind of on the heels of that Annie screen test that I didn't get. I did a commercial for Underoos. You're too young. Underoos underwear. They were their underwear that was fun to wear, and it was at like different superheroes and things like that. So I was Barbie Pink Lace,
Okay.
which sounds illegal, but there I was. I was like 11 years old dancing around in underwear on TV. Here we are.
Was that the big break for you on the commercial side?
Totally.
Mhm.
Totally, and it was huge, like, back in the '80s, they used to spend so much. I mean, they still do spend money on commercials, but we sang in the commercial. We went into a recording studio with a full orchestra and recorded this thing, like, it was incredible, like, the amount of money and time that they spent, and then we rehearsed, we had a whole choreography, and we shot it. It was incredible, and I made a lot of money, back then too, like, commercials are pretty good, so, yeah.
Absolutely, that's the way to get in. When we look at Brainscan, because I feel as though it was a film such of ahead of its time, it almost kind of predicted what we're going through now, and people to talk about the impact that entertainment has on the violence that occurs in society, and just people getting drawn into. You could probably say brainwashed by the things that they see on social media, and in
Sure.
which they go out and commit some crimes and do some
Yeah, and, like,
things.
without knowing, like, what's real or am I in the game or is it real or is it yeah, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
you make a good point.
Yeah. Do you think that it kind of was ahead of its time and that there really is an impact on what you take in from looking at on the internet, on social media?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was one of the first movies to do that and to kind of bring those kind of, like, really interactive video games, like, to have that be, like, the through line of the story, and also in terms of special effects, it might look janky now, but, like, back then, when the team that was working on the special effects were, like, top notch. Unfortunately, there was this whole creature that, like, came up from under the bed and tried to kill me, and I'm on this bed, like, fighting it. We shot that thing for, like, 4 or 5 days. Most of it got cut out of the movie. I couldn't believe it because I worked so hard and screamed my head off for a week, but, anyway, these were, like, top, like, creature, designers from LA who came to Montreal and worked on that with us. So, yeah, the subject matter, absolutely, and also the technology that was going on in the film, while we were working on it was really kind of modern and cool. I'm happy to be a part of it. Like, so many people like, still love that movie. It cracks me up so many years later.
Edward Furlong, he was in
Yeah,
that. Yeah, he
yeah,
got to play the love interest character there.
yeah.
When we look at the whole movie, because it really was something that was ahead of its time. You were going out to Montreal, so this was kind of like the first taste for you to get out and be overseas as well.
Oh, yeah, this was huge. This was like a huge studio feature, and I was the female lead. It was like a big deal. I had a driver. It was very, I was like, okay, it was a lot. It was fun. It's fun.
It-
Montreal was great. I got to live in another place for a few months, which is one of, like, the fringe benefits of doing what I do is, like, you might get a call tomorrow and be like, you're going to Italy," or it could be you're going to, Wichita or Timbuktu, wherever, but. we go places that you never necessarily would get a chance to go, if you weren't like off on location. So,
No, that's where the film world takes you. Have you been able to do any conventions? I heard that you were able to connect with Edward years later, reconnect
Edward
through
Furlong.
social
Yeah.
media.
Yeah,
Has
we
there ever been any like conventions? 'Cause I know horror fans are huge into that stuff.
No, we do have I have to give him a shout out. There's one guy on Instagram who's a huge Brainscan fan. I should look up his handle. I can't think of it at the top. You'll find it if you like check out Brainscan on Instagram. And we both communicate with him. He's such a nice guy. He's based in Germany. He's writing a sequel. I'm like,
Wow.
listen, you send it, I'll read it. Let's go. So 100 years later, what are they doing? I think I live in the movie. Yeah, I'm alive at the end. So there's that guy. I haven't done any conventions. I was almost going to do one a couple of years ago for 13 Reasons Why in
Paris.
in France,
Yeah.
exactly, and that got canceled. So that was kind of post-COVID or in the middle of COVID. So I don't have a lot of experience with that. I do have friends that have been on The Walking Dead, and they've told me it's insane. Like that world, like the Walking Dead conventions are just like incredible. So
Huge. A big fan of The Walking Dead. Have you had the
love it.
chance to read for one of those shows? That's because that's probably something you would love to be a part of.
Okay, like, are you kidding me? Of course. Yeah, I read for this is so sad. Lila Robbins played the role in the show. She was like the president in the last season. And she was fat. She's a great actress. I know I did a play with her husband last year. I met the woman. She's amazing. So happy for her that she got it. But when I read for that and I did not get it, I may have laid on the floor of my kitchen and cried.
Oh.
I love that show.
Yeah, and they got all the spinoffs too. Fear the Walking Dead. They got all those spinoff
Yes.
shows too. So it's
And
branching out.
and if you're a Walking Dead fan, in the movie I just did with the Bloomquist brothers, Self-Help, which will be, doing the festival circuit this year, one of our young leads is Madison Lintz, who played, the young girl in, like, season 1, remember the barn massacre?
Oh yeah, when she comes out of the
Carol's
barn,
Carol's daughter.
Carol's daughter.
She was Carol's daughter. So I'm, like, thinking she's gonna be, a teenager. She's like a grown woman, and she's in the film, and she's lovely and talented, but I did geek out a little bit for her. I was like, "That episode was so good."
Well, since you're a big Walking Dead fan, because I stopped watching it like years ago, just based on just going to school and things like that.
Yeah.
Because I feel as though, because with the character Shane, I feel as though he was right about how the world was going to become. Do you think they killed him off too early?
Yeah, Shane was kind of badass. Yeah, maybe, but I don't know. I hung on. Yeah, I know. I don't know. What was that, season 3? I forget. I don't know. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, yes, okay, yes, they killed him off too soon.
Yeah, I think that was season 2. Yeah, it was early. I think they
It was
needed
that
another.
early? He
Yeah, I think
probably he needed to go on, do other, movies and TV shows because
yeah, the
that
Punisher
guy's
and all
yeah,
that.
he's had
Yeah.
an enormous career, well deserved.
Exactly. And so do you. But you mentioned the monster scene before. I was gonna bring that up, the one that you filmed where
Oh,
you were screaming. Did you know why
yeah.
that ended up getting cut? Did you ever find out why?
No, I have no idea. They don't tell me these things.
Man.
Yeah, they just movies are made once when you write it, once when you shoot it, and a third time when you edit it. So, you do what you can on set, and then you never know. That's why the first time you watch a project that you're in, like for me, I'm just like, oh I can't believe they used that take or they cut out, whatever. It's just you're trying to make sense of what they've, come up with now, versus what you shot.
Mhm.
So
You were able to invest in your own Volkswagen to get out to California when you were younger. Was this after the brain scan or was this before?
hold on. We got to get the cars straight. My first car was a Volkswagen Golf. I bought that when I was a teenager. Then in 1993, I bought a Mazda Miata.
Okay.
That's the car I drove to LA. I
There we
drove
go.
to LA by myself in the winter in a Mazda Miata. It was
Wow.
scary. It was exciting. I'm a little crazy sometimes. I was like, I'm just going to do it. I did it in 5 days. I just 8 hours a day in that little Miata with gigantic trucks next to me. Wee! I made it.
Was it the goal for you to go out there, make connections for a film? Was that what you were hoping to get on that
It was
journey?
just yeah, not necessarily for a film, just to kinda see what was going on. I was probably, like, 27 at that point. So I was like, "Let me do that." And honestly, I was in a relationship here in New York. He had to go back somewhere. He had to go back to France to finish school, And so we had been living together, TMI, but like I was like, let me just I'm not sure what's going to happen. Let me go to LA now while I'm alone and I have the time to do it and just see what's out there. So I went out there for that was when I moved out there for 6 months and lived in a garage.
Mhm. Yeah, and you were able to become bilingual there.
Yeah, with my ex-husband, correct. Yes. Oh, you
Well,
did your
oh,
research.
thank you. Were there any important connections that you made at NYU? I know you were in the political science space, but there wasn't
Yeah,
any there. Yeah.
not at all. I was like a little ghost at NYU. I literally just I would go in, go to my class, and come home. I'm still not even sure why I got my master's. Just I mean, honestly, it's because it's stuff I'm really interested in, and again, I think I was, like, afraid to commit fully to being an actress without having something else as a backup. So I think that was part of it, and I'm very much interested in, like, history and political science, American government. So I said, "Let me just do that and see," and then, like I said, I graduated in book Brainscan, so I was like, "Well, I guess I'm not gonna work in DC. I'm gonna,
Yeah.
act."
Of course, that's the dream. You kept going, and
Yeah,
we get all the way to Homeland. So they were bringing you in and out, and then once you find out that the season is ending, because you weren't contracted, they were just bringing you back for certain
correct.
things. You were just
I
coming
was
back.
what we
So
call recurring. I was a recurring guest star for all I mean, I was around for the whole show, but I don't think I were like seasons 4 to 5, 4, 5, 6. I wasn't around a lot. 3, 4, 5, I forget which ones. But in the middle, I wasn't around. But they did bring me back at the end. Maggie.
yeah, when did you find out at the point that the show was ending?
I don't remember.
Mm.
Honestly, I don't remember. I think we knew. I think we had yeah, no, we had a sense that no, I think we knew maybe the second to last season that it was going to be wrapping up. Yeah, and they were always great. Like even though I was only a recurring guest star, like I was definitely part of the family and was treated really beautifully. And we it was basically a decade of our lives. So you're coming in, you're going out, and my kids went from being little to being adults. Claire had a couple kids. Everybody's life had evolved, and we traveled the world as well. We worked in Cape Town on that in South Africa, LA, Virginia, North Carolina. Like we were all over the place with that show. And so it was really meaningful, a really meaningful chunk of my life and my career.
People always remember your scene too, with the huge monologue that you had with the custody
In the
scene. That
courtroom.
was, yeah, the courtroom. That was a huge scene for you.
I know. That was emotional.
Yeah,
It was
big
emotional.
time.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you remained in contact with a lot of people from the cast? With Claire Danes, did you establish any friendship there, especially
Yeah, yeah,
being
we're
a relative?
absolutely friendly. We can text each other, but we're not like we don't see each other like frequently. But I would say I'm pretty close to Sarita Chowdhury, who played Saul's wife in the earlier seasons. I'm not sure if she was around in the later seasons. She's great. She lives in New York. We keep in touch. Who else do I keep in touch with? I don't know. I don't remember. Let's see. A lot of like guest stars. There, Matt Servito is a friend of mine here in New York. He was on. Oh, I was just talking about Adrienne Moore was in that actual episode of the courtroom scene. She was down in Richmond when we shot that, and we hung out like at the hotel. And we talked about her because we were watching Juror Number Two, and she's in that. So it's like I'm not necessarily in touch with like when you work as an actor like this, you kind of come together and you create these families, and it's like the circus. And then you go poof, and you never know when you're going to see each other again. And when you drop back in with each other, it's like no time has passed. You get really close really fast, but then it's kind of just comes and goes. So
Yeah,
yeah.
especially because you're always moving. When you're acting, you're always on the move, traveling different places.
Yes, and everybody else is as well, so you never know where you're gonna be.
No, it's something that I did want to bring up because I think it's so important, especially when I believe you were having one of your kids at the time. Is that the agent called you and said that they were no longer going to represent you? So that was big. So when did you get in contact with Lori? Because she's been representing you for a while now.
That's
So
right, that's
what
right.
happened to where you kind of had to gain the momentum to get in touch with a new agent, which was
Mhm.
how you ended up with Lori?
Yeah, exactly. So, wow, that's a deep cut. I had my son, so it was, over 20 years ago, and, So I have a, I do a lot of voiceover work in my life, which has been a blessing, and we love that. And I have one agent for that, and then I have another agent for film, television, and theater. So I had kind of done really well for a chunk of years, and things were kind of going up. And then when I was pregnant with my son, I got flown out to LA to screen test for an NBC pilot, and I was so in my head about being pregnant, and I was like, you know, 8 weeks pregnant. Like I wasn't showing at all, but I knew I was pregnant. I was thinking about it, and I was worried that, like, what if I get cast in this and we go to series, and like, is it going to be a problem? I'm going to be pregnant. They're going to be mad. It's like the things that women worry about. Hopefully that's changed a little bit, but probably not. So when I went in the room to test with all the suits, I screwed up like 2 or 3 times. Like I said the wrong name, like that instead of saying Steve, I said Bob instead of Bob, like for within the scene, and I was mortified. So long story short, didn't book that, fly home to New York with my tail between my legs, have my baby. I'm still working in voiceovers, making a ton of money, but my legit side wasn't really popping off during that time. And then, my son was like a month old, and my legit agent called and was like, "Yeah, we're dropping you." I was like, "Oh my God." So, what I did was just thank my lucky stars that, like, I was good, my kid was good. I had my voiceover agent who was still calling. I'm still booking jobs, making money, which is very important. And I was working with an entertainment attorney at the time. I asked him to pitch me around to different agencies. Everybody passed. I was like, it's over. And then, as luck would have it, I got cast in a tiny little play in New York at the Vital Theater Company. It was a one act festival. So I was just doing one little one act, which was perfect because my son was, I don't know, 10 months old. And I was in that. And my current manager, Lori Smith, came to see that. And we had a mutual friend, another friend of hers was in the show, and in a different one act. And he said, "This woman wants to represent you." And I met with her and I said, "Why not? Let's go." And she's a manager, not an agent. So we started working together. She pitched me to agents, got me on board with somebody, and it was like, back at it. And we're still together all these
That's
years later.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was because you were doing voiceover work for Nickelodeon, which
That's right.
that was big for the time.
Oh
It would
yeah.
be big today, of course. It's still a big
Yeah.
network, even though there's a lot of controversy there now. But it was
Oh, right.
huge.
Yeah. No, it was huge. Also, like, it's a niche within the world of voiceovers, but to be the voice of a station, a TV station,
Huge.
it's huge, and it doesn't usually fall to women. Like, those are typically male jobs. That was 20 years ago. I think it's pretty much there's, the like Lifetime and Hallmark. I'm sure they're using women's voices as the voice of the brand. But at that time, it was kind of a big deal. And you're on a contract. You're like, it was incredible. It was a great it was a great job for me being pregnant. You know what I mean? To like be making money and being creative and having fun. It was fun.
Absolutely. Was that the piece that was to the point when you got this when you were with Lori? Was this what you got with Lori?
No, no, this
Okay.
wasn't this was I was kinda newly pregnant or almost pregnant when I booked that job. So and that's through, and I don't Lori Lori manages my film, television, and theater. My voiceover work is
Voiceover
like my
separate.
day job, separate. I have an agent for that. We just handle that on our own.
What was the piece for you to where you said, "I'm back"? Because you got with Lori, so what was the work that you said, "Alright, I'm back now. We're back on track."
Wow. I don't know. Maybe I booked like a guest lead, like a really chunky guest lead on Law and Order Criminal Intent, which was a good one when in between like after, yeah, probably within like a few months because I hadn't had my daughter yet. So yeah, and it was a good role. It was like a, big chunky thing. So that felt good.
Vincent D'Onofrio?
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And Catherine Erb and who else was in that? I can't remember. Other amazing New York actors, as always.
Yeah.
My brain is starting to go woof.
You've done so much, you
Yeah,
can't even recall it. Yeah, that's how it usually goes in the entertainment space.
yeah.
Especially because 'cause you've referenced it before, when you go on the different shows, it's almost as if it's a Thanksgiving dinner to
Mhm.
getting onto these shows. What was the one that was most challenging for you as far as getting into that big show set that's already ongoing? Was it a Blue Bloods or a Law& and
Oh,
Order?
oh, good question. Now when that thing I mentioned about, like, going to Thanksgiving dinner at someone else's house, That's strictly for when you're coming in as like a one episode guest star, because you're not in that long. You're in for maybe 10 days, but probably less than 10 days. And everybody knows each other. They're doing 22 episodes a year. People are sleeping together. People hate each other. You don't know any of this, but it's all happening. And you got to get there and just be like, "Hey guys, I'm going to do this." I would say Blue Bloods was challenging for me. There was a lot of what I would how do I say this? Less than okay. So when you are on the series regular side of things, like when I was on 13 Reasons Why, or even like something like Homeland, where it's like I wasn't obviously top of the call sheet, but I was like part of the family. So like when somebody new comes in for an episode or two, you make the attempt to like welcome them and make sure they're at ease. And Claire was somebody who was very good about, welcoming people and being very respectful to our guest actors. But when you go on other, like, so on Blue Bloods, it was a little like nobody cared, and it was very kind. There was some like unprofessional stuff going on. Like I had a scene where I had to be like crying, and the actors that I'm working with, one of the series regular actors was like on his phone, had taken a phone call like in my face right as we're like, it was tricky. But you know what? That's not the end of the world, and that's my job as an actor, to know how to focus and get rid of all the distractions and still, like, deliver the performance, and that's what you do. It just makes it a little less pleasant, let's say. So, and no names, but somebody on that show.
Oh, we could speculate, but I'm not the type to really drag. Well, I drag people through the
Yeah.
dirt, but I'm not going to do that to you.
No, it's not also, like, dragging through the dirt because, like, maybe he had a crisis going on at home. Maybe one of his
Mhm.
kids was sick. I don't know, it was just tricky to be like, "Oh," to negotiate that, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When did you discover the book 13 Reasons Why? Early on.
No, I didn't even I kind of realized that it was a book, but I hadn't read it. I hadn't read it before I auditioned for it.
Okay, so this was you just
No,
went to
my
the
daughter
audition.
yeah, I think I told my daughter, "Oh, I'm reading for this thing." "Oh, yeah, it's about a girl who kills herself." "Oh, okay." You know, and here we are. I still haven't read the book.
How is the audition process for this role, Lainey
Easy
Jensen?
piece of cake. I had like a two-page scene I self-taped really quickly in my bedroom right over there on like the Friday before. I think I got the audition on like Friday before Memorial Day and it was due Tuesday or something. I said, "You know what? I'm busy. Let's just do it really quick." I did it really quick, sent it off, didn't think about it. And the next week they were like, "Oh, they want you to screen test." I'm like, "Okay." And back in the day, that would mean they would fly you out, you would go meet all the suits. That's totally changed. The business is totally different. So like they want you to screen test. I'm like, "Okay." So generally that'll mean at least doing another self tape with like new material or updated material. They were like, "No, just, do the same scene again." I was like, "What? Like a new tape?" So what I did, because I wanted to do something, like I wanted to like keep the same vibe because they liked the previous tape. I just like went and got my hair blown out and made sure I was like extra cute. And I went to my manager's office and she put me on tape at her office just to get like another, person's like thoughts about it, because I trust her. And we sent that off and then I got the job.
Yeah, and that was a huge hit show instantly to because it really is. It's a deep show. It touches a
Yeah.
lot of subjects that people really don't want to discuss, especially with suicide. I know people
Yeah.
are saying that it glorifies suicide and all this
Yeah.
craziness, but we talk about that one scene with Hannah committed suicide.
Yeah.
It got removed. Do you think that the directors and everyone in that scene, do you think they took it too far with that because they ended up removing the scene? Do you think they took it too
Yeah.
far, including that?
Possibly.
Mhm.
Possibly. I will say that uh nobody took any of this lightly. And there
Mhm.
was so much discussion and so much involvement with psychologists and child development people and suicide prevention organizations. So it wasn't like anyone was like, "Oh, we're just going to kind of write this thing." There was a lot of thought that went into it, even in including the scene. Um, that being said, the powers that be changed their mind and decided to remove it, which I don't think the show needed it really. So yeah, why not edit that bit out?
I agree. I think the subject alone, the tapes are enough. Just hearing the details of, I think that was enough.
Yes, it was, it's a rough show. It's really challenging. But I do know though that like a lot of I've had young people come, stop me on the street, with crying, saying like, "Oh, my cousin, died by suicide, and your show was so meaningful to me." And so it's complex.
Mhm.
It's complex. I hope that we made something that's helpful to people. We try.
You did, and it took it even further from the book because it was the book was shorter, but you were able to expand it just based off the popularity and get
Yeah.
into other themes. Bryce
Yeah.
redeeming himself, which is I know that's split on people.
Also, like, the nicest guy on the planet played that role, so it was hard to he's just such a sweetheart.
Eh, but people will say that Monty is. People think he was worse. There are people that think he was worse.
I'm trying to think, Monty did some bad things, right? Yeah, he
Yeah.
was pretty bad. Yeah, he
Uh,
was pretty bad.
Two
It's
peas in a
funny because
pod.
we have a group chat, still, like the group chat from, 4 or 5 years ago, and I have a friend in the Bay Area where we shot the show who apparently a friend of hers bought, like, some of the lockers from our set and has them in her kitchen as, like, kids store their school crap and stuff, and she just out of the blue sends a picture of this to me, and they kept some of, like, the prop or the set decoration, like, like Hannah Baker's locker and stuff, she sent me a picture of it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have to reactivate the group chat for this." So I dropped it back on the group chat. Everybody was like, "What?" Like, it's hilarious. So, yeah.
That's great. Did you keep any props from any, not even just 13 Reasons Why, but any of your sets that you've been on?
Not really props, more like clothes,
Clothes.
but let it be said, I'm never stealing anything. I'm always leaving with permission because, sometimes they need to, sell stuff to make money, like on indies especially, but sometimes a lot of times the costume department's like, "Take all of this." Like on 13, for example, this is so ridiculous, but like when you're a series regular on a show, they have a huge closet for your character, and this is gonna be very happy. The girls are gonna be happy about this. Like, you have a bunch of bras and shapewear and tights and things. The costume department was like, "Here, have like 15 brand new bras that fit you perfectly." I'm like, "Yay!" And things like that. So sometimes the costume people are generous.
Yeah, exactly. How was working with Dylan in that? Because he also does music too with the Wallows. So did you kind of
Yeah,
get to know him that way on the set and notice he had all this other
absolutely. No,
stuff? Yeah.
he's a great person. He's a great person. He's a really good actor. He's a lovely human being, and I'm so happy for Wallows and the work that they're doing together. They're so fun. They're such a great band, and they're doing really well. We saw them. They played when the band was called Narwhal before, and they played at our 13 Reasons Why season 1 wrap party. And we were like, "Oh, cute. Like Dylan has a band and they're gonna play," and they like kicked ass. And they changed their name like right after that and then started to kind of grow. And I'm really happy for him. He's a great guy.
Absolutely. How about Josh Hamilton?
Are you kidding? I love Josh.
Yeah.
Josh yeah, Josh and I are solid. We have a lot of friends in common, both being New Yorkers. I'm surprised we had never crossed paths or worked together before the show, but we had a blast. We had a great 4 years. I haven't seen him in a while. We saw each other on the picket lines last year. We were at a friend's backyard in Brooklyn a little while ago. He's just a good dude.
Mhm. That show because it went on for a few years there.
Mhm.
Do you like how it ended? Do you think it because there are people I've seen in some fan chats, they're like, "Oh, we should have followed Clay to college."
Oh, really? Oh, that's
Yeah,
so
people want
funny.
that.
I mean, I don't know. Some of it felt a little melodramatic, so and you have to end something at some point. Would I have liked to keep working in the Bay Area for 6 months a year, making like, series regular money? Sure, but, some things aren't meant to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe we'll have a 2-hour movie reboot or something like that. See where it
That would be nice. I know that would be
yeah.
big. A lot of talent on the show, star-studded cast. How was Selena Gomez behind the scenes?
Lovely.
Mhm.
I mean, she wasn't around all the time, but when she was there, she was really present and really supportive and kind. She and her mom were executive producers and found the book initially for her to star in, I think. And then, a couple of years went by and she's like, "Let me just EP this." She was great. She was great. Yeah. And her mom's lovely. It was a very nice atmosphere. on that show.
I look at it too. It's such an important show because it's a reflection on society as much as we really hate to admit it. Just based on there's a lot of abuse that goes on in high school,
Yeah.
college. You can extend it to there, but the gun violence too with school shootings, which is crazy. It's become normalized. You see that in the show. Panic attacks, anxiety, which you see Clay
Mhm.
has. I love how it just touches on so many important things to where people kind of can relate and just not be afraid to speak up about things that they're going through, things they've
Yeah.
experienced, and even just, I mean, how the show ends. I think Justin really got the you know what end of the stick with hearing about his diagnosis with AIDS and all, and how he dies. That was crazy. So it touches on some heavy topics.
I mean, you're just recapping all that. I'm getting anxiety thinking about all that stuff we kind of explored. Yeah, I think it was meaningful to kind of put all that in front of, young people, and yes, you're right. There is this level of like, I don't know, cruelty that we have towards each other now that's kind of become acceptable, the way we treat each other with like a lack of respect that, goes through to all that stuff, bullying, gun violence, all that stuff. It's just the world is a little bit challenging right now.
It got
So
more challenging today, but I won't get too deep.
yeah, yeah, I'm not even sure what to say about all that, but, it's it's a difficult day. Let's
It
leave
it,
it leave
it
it at that.
definitely is, but it's MLK Day. That's all I'm gonna recognize about
Yeah,
it.
and I feel strongly about, kind of doubling down on our own values and the own behaviors that we have because we can control ourselves and what we do day to day and how we treat people in our community, and, that's kind of where I'm putting my efforts, not to freak out too much about all that other stuff, but just make sure I'm doing the right thing right here at home and in my community here in New York. So,
That's important.
yeah.
How's social media for you? Because there was a time where there was some troubles for you. You had to block countries, I heard, and people.
Yeah.
What happened with this? Is because certain roles that you performed, they were judging you.
Yeah, I had to block Malaysia on Facebook. This is a while ago now. Yeah, there was like a lunatic just texting me, DMing me on Facebook every day, and like changing his profile. This was almost probably a decade ago. So like I wasn't as good at all this stuff as I am now. And yeah, so now I know how to handle that stuff and how to set. And I also think like social media has grown too, where they allow you to set parameters and like, screen for different words, that kind of stuff. So I haven't had any issues now, but also like if I look at my spam, on Instagram, it's like, but I just ignore it. So yeah, that was a little scary. Yeah, that it felt a little personal. But that has gone away and hasn't, re-emerged. So that's good.
Yeah, no, that is. Yeah, I don't understand why people judge because it's acting at the end of the day. It's not real. I think people need to go after people who are really committing the actions instead of what they do in the entertainment field.
You would think, but here we
Yeah.
are.
It
Uh,
yeah, Founders Day, this is the horror film. I brought this up at the beginning
yeah.
of the story. It kind of relates to today too, with people committing
Ah,
crimes for political tension and
I know.
elections and things like that.
That
It
movie's so ridiculous. I love it. Yeah, I play the worst mayor on the planet who's just trying to cling to power. And then, like, teenagers start kind of dropping dead all over town, and she's really not that because she's still more concerned about her reelection. I mean, it's fun. It's fun. We had a good time making that one.
Yeah. I read online. Did you have some sort of producer role or yeah, how was that? Was this your first time in that lane?
I think it may have been, yeah, because this is the second project that I did with the Bloomquist brothers. I did a film called Intermedium, maybe a year prior to that, which is kind of like a YA, really sweet ghost story, I guess. And they brought me back for Founders Day, and I was like, all right, and we have a really great relationship. They're open to it feels like a collaboration. I mean, they're definitely running the ship, and they write, they direct, they edit, they're incredible. But it felt like, I felt like a part of the team the second time. So, yeah, we settled on I think it's a co-producer credit. And same on self-help as well. This one that's coming up.
Yeah, you mentioned that. What else do you have on the way besides self-help?
I did a film in the spring in Montana called Baby Love with Kiana Madeira, who's great. She plays, are you sitting down? An MMA fighter, and I'm her mother. And it's definitely like in the gritty, gritty underworld of literally like rural Montana MMA. So it's not like, UFC, big fancy. It's like if you win, you get $100. And we look into the world of like CTE and what happens to that, and it's kind of sad, it's kind of gritty, it's gritty, we'll call it gritty, yeah.
Yeah, because you grew up out there in Long Island. So are
Yeah,
you into football, Jets, the Giants? Do you into
listen,
any sports?
if we're gonna talk sports teams, it's gonna have to be the Mets,
I'm a Mets fan.
it's gonna have to be the Islanders, and I don't really care about football, to be honest with you. I really
Oh,
don't.
okay.
I mean, I guess I would say the Giants, but I don't know, do I care? I don't know. I really don't care about football. I find it very, I know a lot of sports are violent, but, like, it's upsetting me, like, that people are getting, like, really hurt and, like, later in their lives, the brain injuries and stuff. I know it's a billion-dollar industry, so nothing's ever gonna change, but, I just find it a little upsetting, all the violence. I'm getting old and delicate, I can't watch that stuff anymore.
No,
But
I
I wanna see hockey, and I wanna see them get in a fight, so.
yeah, you got the Islanders there, but the Mets,
Yeah.
they're looking good. They just got Juan Soto.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be great, but, you never the Mets they're notorious for letting us down,
E
so
exactly. Especially with the news that they probably aren't bringing Pete Alonso back, so there's another thing that we can't really look forward to.
ay, ay, ay.
Unbelievable. How
Always
about
fun.
for plays? Are you looking because you're someone that really goes through it all and navigates from
Mhm.
being in the crucible, but you'll do TV shows, films. So are
Sure.
you going to be doing some play work too soon?
Well, I just last week, I worked on a beautiful new play. We did, like a week-long equity workshop of this new play written by an actor who I've worked with, who's a friend of mine, called Blake DeLong, wrote the most spectacular play called Men's. And we workshopped it all last week and did an industry, like a private industry reading of it on Friday for like investors, producers, people who might want to like take it to the next step. It went so well. It's so beautiful. I can't say much about it except, am I allowed to say what it's about? I think I am. It's basically an off-Broadway company, doing a starry production of Hamlet with, like, a newly minted TV star in the lead, but we only see everything that goes on backstage. So we're hearing Hamlet, but we're seeing all the backstage drama, and when I tell you it's excellent, it is so good. It's heartbreaking, it's funny, it's moving. We had a fucking blast, sorry, working on that last week. It was really great. So we'll see. I mean, there were some people in the room who seemed interested and, not my job. I just go in and I act and I leave, but, it seems like there might be some interest. So I hope for Blake that, the next steps happen soon.
Yeah, I do too. As far as everything that you've done in your career, what are you most proud of when you look back on the role? I think you played some important pieces.
Oh my gosh, what am I most proud I'm pouring water for this one. What am I most proud of? It's really hard to single out one role, but I might say, Homeland was pretty meaningful, as was 13, and a film I did a few years ago called, How He Fell in Love, which
That
I
was a
felt
big one.
it was a I mean, it was an indie, but
Indie one.
it was a huge role for me, and I felt like it was really, beautifully told. That was pretty great. But I want to say the most important and the thing I'm really the most proud of is having raised two amazing kids who are now like young adults while keeping up like this wild and crazy creative life that I have and being able to like make a living and raise them and be present but also be present there. It was kind of a juggling act, and they're 22 and 24 and still talking to me, and I think they're decent young people, and yay me, I did that with
C-
with their dad, but
Congratulations on that, especially because there was some work that you were doing with animals, with dogs, with rescuing from Puerto Rico.
oh my god, well, Fred, Fred's just outside right now. He's 15, he just turned 15.
Oh
My
wow.
little baby, my third baby. Yeah, he's slowed down quite a bit, but, he's still going, and we're just, trying to keep him cozy and happy while he's still with us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's been a big part of our lives. Do you have dogs?
Yeah, I have 2. I have a pit bull German Shepherd mix, and I have a pug.
Okay. I mean, dogs are literally the best. What did we do to deserve them, you know?
Yeah, exactly. They're really the good of our world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. And then another thing that I've been working on since you mentioned like kind of my charitable work in the last year. I speak French, and in New York City, we've had like a big influx of migrants from West Africa. So I went downtown to Lower East Side about a year ago, because there was a call for French speakers to help like translate at like a warming center for migrants. And I did that once, did that twice, and was like, oh boy, it felt really important and really meaningful, and I was good at it. And so over this past year, I've become an advocate for mostly younger migrants, like under 21 crowd, helping them find, better housing, better schooling, just warm clothes, helping them access legal help, helping them find mentors. So that's been kind of taking up a lot of my time when I'm not doing creative stuff. I'm kind of doing that. So yeah, this week is a big one for this community because things might get a little kooky. So
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
praying that it doesn't, but it's very unexpected times right now,
yeah,
unfortunately. But I'm happy to hear that you're doing all these great things, especially with people coming in from out of the country and things like that, and especially just everything that you've done with the film work and with the animal. I did want to touch on this because I did want to ask you about that. There were animals on set for 13 Reasons Why.
did we
I
like
heard,
like therapy animals?
yeah, therapy animals. That would.
Yes, that was. I wasn't there though. That was
Mhm.
when they shot the scene with like Hannah
Okay.
bathtub. I'm pretty sure that's when they had them there. It might have been another time. My character never was around on those worst of the worst days. Thank God, because it's that's emotional stuff to work through. Yeah, like I said, like going back, like the showrunner Brian Yorkie and the EPs, they really wanted to do things right and to make sure everyone was taken care of and that we were being responsible to ourselves and the material. So yeah, that's what they were doing. Therapy
Yeah.
dog. Love it.
Keeping everyone calm. That's the main
Exactly.
thing. Uh,
Exactly.
but Amy, is there anything else you would love to let your fans know? Anything else that we didn't cover here today?
I don't know. You asked me a lot of really great questions. You're like an
Oh,
awesome interviewer. Yeah.
oh, thank you.
No, I can't think of anything. I'll send you an email if I think of something after. Be like, one more thing.
Yeah, thank you for. I want to thank you for joining me here as a guest on my show here tonight. It was an honor to speak with you, just everything that you've done, and just being an observer, a fan of your work. I appreciate everything that you're doing out there, especially with your charities. That's big.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Max. Like I said, we don't know what's coming next, so we just got to be nice to the person next to us and our neighbor. And if everybody did a little something, I think the world will just be a better place. Be a little kindness to the next person.
Yeah, and stop feeding everything on Twitter.
I know. I'm on Blue Sky now, by the way. I have like
Yeah,
9
I just started
followers.
mine recently.
I'll find you.
Yeah.
It seems like listen, I like on Twitter, honestly, what I liked was like I bike a lot. I want to see biking Twitter. I like birds. I want to see bird Twitter. I want to see like urbanist Twitter. Like I like urban planning, things like that. I don't want to see all this dumb stuff. So now I go on Blue Sky and I can really just follow that stuff without all the chaos. And I think that's great. So
Yeah, gotta get away from the conspiracies and hatred. It's bad.
it is bad. It is bad. It is bad. Well, be well for the next 4 years. Hope you do
Yeah,
well.
you too. And anytime you want to come back on the show, you're always welcome. You always have a place here, whether I'm still on this platform or somewhere bigger, which I'm working
Yeah.
towards and praying for.
We should talk, since you're in Connecticut, you need to know the Bloomquist brothers who, from Founders Day, we have this film Self-Help. When we're doing the festival circuit with that, we wanna do some promotions, maybe we'll come and talk. 'Cause you should
Absolutely.
talk to them, they're so smart, they're so cool, and they're like this 2 people, one-man band just doing all of it on their own and, like, really kicking ass. I'm really impressed with them.
Wow. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's empowering because you need to do it on your own in this day and age because there's it's so unexpected. It's the independent era now.
Nobody's handing out anything in show business right now. And literally any movie that gets made and distributed is a miracle. It's a miracle. It's so hard. So the fact that these guys are cranking them out and doing really, really good work is it's pretty astounding. So
Yeah, no, it
I'll
is.
I'll introduce you to those guys.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you, Amy. It
No
was
problem.
great speaking with you tonight. Thank you to Lori for getting this set up
Yeah,
and connected as well too. She's amazing.
absolutely. All right. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Max.
Amy. Take care.
Have a
Enjoy
good
the rest of
weekend.
your night.
Okay, thanks you too.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye bye.